She leapt for the bell cord. The bus ground to a halt at the stop by the farthest entrance, and they scrambled to get off. At least the rain had stopped. A piece of luck, since she'd forgotten the umbrella. On the way up the long driveway, he put his arm around her. He should be dead, she thought, 300 years ago, and yet he's here comforting me. It doesn't make sense. Zoe, he said when they were halfway there, don't let the anger make you push people away. Don't take it out on the people who love you. I cut myself off from my father, and look what happened to me. It tortures me to think of how it could have been. I should have recognized the form his grief took and comforted him. We could have stood against Christopher together. We could have won. I was a fool. Zoe hugged him closer to her. We don't ever have the benefit of hindsight in our decisions, let alone 300 years' worth. Secretly, she thought, am I pushing them away? No, it's them. But his words nagged at her. She still hadn't phoned Lorraine. As they neared the building, Simon slowed down. He tipped his head to examine its height like Jack facing the giant. She hesitated as the large glass doors. Would anyone really want to sit at the deathbed of someone he didn't even know? Are you sure you want to come in? She asked. Yes, he said, but he looked frightened, unsteady. You could wait outside. No. It didn't look as if he was going to move, however, so she went in and ahead of him. He followed her and kept close like a child at the dentist. His eyes flicked rapidly here and there. She was sure a sudden noise would give him a heart attack, if that was possible. He almost flinched when someone passed him in the corridor. They drew a few curious stares, but this was a hospital. They probably think I'm taking him to the psych ward, she decided. I'm not used to the light, he said by the way of excuse. When the elevator doors closed, she wished for his sake that they had taken the stairs. She could feel his panic-like vibrations in the air. Thank goodness they were in there alone, because she didn't think he could have taken a crowd. The problem is, he said, as she could hear the click of his tongue in his dry mouth, in my line of work, you'd like to have an escape route. He cut short of a nervous giggle by biting his lip. Zoe smiled politely at the plump nurse at the 5th floor station. The nurse smiled back. Which room? 512. Oh, yes, Mrs. Sutcliffe, she said. She was expecting her daughter. That's me. Well, go ahead, dear. I expect you know the way. She looked doubtfully at Simon, but held her tongue. He stared back at her, a defiant young punk, his defense mechanisms at work again. Zoe tugged at his sleeve. Come on. What was he up to? Was he going to make a scene? He broke eye contact with practiced indifference. Quite an actor, she thought, remembering his distress only moments before. She could hear the nurses in the staff room now. It's the stress, they say. It brings out the devil in them. She's hanging on with hoods to get attention. It made her smile if only they knew. The smile faded when she came to her mother's door, and got no response to her gentle knock. The lights were low, and her mother just a huddled lump in the bed. A surge of terror made her rush to the bedside, but the steady movement of breathing quelled her fears. She lowered herself to a chair. Her mother's slippers lay half under the bed, looking flat and empty. I guess there won't be any conversation tonight, she thought. Simon, liquid with ease in the muted light, pulled a chair up beside her. He looked at her mother with interest, all the nervousness smoothed from his face. Hence your beauty, he said. But she's not like she was. I can still tell. She wasn't sure how to answer, so didn't. I could shake her, she thought. I could wake her up. She almost reached out, but her mother looked so peaceful, so crushed beneath her thigh the hand that wanted to touch. Let her sleep, she argued. She needs it. She has to grab what she can. But Zoe's lips were tight with disappointment. Why did she call if she was tired? I thought she wanted me here. Simon gazed steadily at her mother's face. It was impossible to guess his thoughts. They made a strange pair, the dying and the undead. Is he wishing he could die too? She wondered. Is life forced on him as much as death is forced on her? A thought suddenly struck her. Could he change her? Could he give her his blood like Christopher had given him his? Surely they could find a way to get her the blood she would need without killing anyone. She would have time for her art, time for her family, all the time in the world. But would he do it? Simon, she whispered, if a sick person became a vampire, would he heal? He twisted a look at her, horror on his face. Would you wish that on someone? Just tell me, she begged. Since I was changed, I have remained a youth, never growing, never aging. Wounds I have sustained since then have always healed rapidly. They repair and leave me as I was before. He tried to keep his voice low, but anger grew as he spoke, strangling his words. If someone were to change with cancer in his body, the body would not alter too much, I think. The cancer would still be there, but the body would heal itself as fast as the cancer ate it away. In effect, that person would probably be in pain forever. What would that do to a person's mind, do you think? Zoe stifled a cry with her fist. Tears started to her eyes. His voice softened. That change can do terrible things to a person, Zoe. It's unnatural. Look at Christopher. At least I was allowed to grow up first, but he's trapped forever in the body of a child and has a child's anger. His body whispers to him the secrets he will never know because it can't quite hear them. I think that's why he kills so brutally. I could never turn anyone into something like that deliberately. He was right. She knew he was right, but it hadn't seemed a last gleam of hope, and now it was gone, almost as soon as she thought of it. And there he was throwing Christopher at her again. If he's so terrible, why don't you stop him? She snapped. It took him aback, but I've tried. His urgent hushed tones reminded her to lower her voice. So try again, they argued in fierce whispers. He's stronger than me. He always outsmarts me. What are you frightened of? The fact he's your older brother? You're bigger than him. Surely you're stronger than him. Simon clenched his fists. What makes you so concerned with my problems? He hissed. Your problems? Zoe raised to her feet without realizing it. You came to me, remember? You made me concerned. But it's not just your problem. It's everyone's problem. You'll be stopping him from killing others. Christopher brings death. This is death. She stabbed a finger in her mother's direction. You can stop death. Her mother groaned and stirred, and Zoe's breath left her for a moment. Had Mom woken? Had she heard? But her mother's body took on the rhythm of sleep once more, and Zoe relaxed. She sat down again. Simon pulled the sheet up and carefully replaced it around the sleeping woman, as gently as if tucking it around his own lost mother. Death had taken her too. Zoe remembered. No, not Death. Christopher. You've got to stop him, Simon, for your mother's sake. He stared at his hands. I'm afraid, Zoe. He could kill me. He knows how to do it. Zoe was astounded. You're afraid of death? Simon shrugged. It doesn't matter how long you live. The idea of non-existence is still frightening. No matter how tired you are of life, it's better than facing the unknown. But you don't have to lose. She glanced at her mother. She couldn't fight the death taking her mother, but she could fight the death that had taken his. She could fight Christopher. What if I helped? It was his turn to be astounded. You'd help? Yes, because I know you can do it. He reached to stroke her hand. How can I let you endanger yourself? Let me help you, she said, or I'll swear I'll do it myself. And at that moment she felt she could. He laughed suddenly, his eyes lighting up. I have never received such an offer. His voice was tender. How could I ever fail with you beside me? We'd better go, she said, already frightened at her own words. I've got a phone call to make. Before they left, she took a folded piece of paper from her coat pocket, smoothed it out, and laid it under her mother's hand. It was a poem. Spells Against Death.